Good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching from different time zones, good morning or good evening. My name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions, or CTS Private Limited. We are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating customized programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony Mobile, ProLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. Experts says that the pandemic will last for the next 3 to 5 years, and this is why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt to the new normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a remote team, and for those business owners who are afraid that they can't keep their team or their business. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively in any situation, we are pleased to have all these interventions that we're organizing for you. And today, it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader. Anji Hallewell is a career mastery and success specialist who o- who has over 16 years of work with the world's biggest brands such as Mediacom, National Geographic, and Fox in a variety of talent development roles. After spending years mastering the impact of behavior on human potential and personally experiencing some of the high pressure challenge ambitious professionals face, Angie discovered that self mastery was the key to achieving natural success. She has taught 1,000 thousands of professional proven mindset tools for them to rise above the negative workings of mind to perform at their best. And now runs an international coaching and mentoring academy to supercharge careers by aligning genius to your profession. This has enabled professionals to achieve promotions, attract dream jobs, find their calling, set up businesses, win industry awards, and most importantly, find career fulfillment. So, without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Angie. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Marilyn. How you
Nice
doing?
to see you again. I'm doing well, and it's nice
Good.
to be back live here today. So we'll start to jump in with a question so that they can get all the meaty um,
Juicy stuff, huh?
learning, yeah, juicy stuff from you. So to start with, actually have like 8 questions for you. The first 3 questions is mainly just to establish like from which perspective are you actually coming from. The 4 to 6 question is mainly like the, I would say, the meaty part or the juicy part, as you say, where we will learn a lot from you and your experience. And the 7 to 8 question will be my Miss Universe questions. So to start with, please share with us your leadership experience and probably influencers, your favorite leadership style when you were working in the corporate and now that you're working with, corporate personnel or leaders and as well as entrepreneurs and perhaps your experience and who influence you along the way.
Mm, yeah, okay, so there's a lot in that question, right? In terms of
Yes.
styles and who has been an influence on me in my career. But essentially, I reached a point of business partner, so that's like a director
Mhm,
level
mhm,
within the corporate world. And so I guess I was an emerging leader. It was a leadership role, but I would say that it was my first kind of leadership role. So I was really in that emerging leader category. And it's
yeah.
funny because I don't think I actually realized it at the time that I had actually stepped into a more of a leadership role because there was no real guidance around how to be a leader. There was no
True.
leadership program within the organization. So I guess, like many, we find ourselves in these positions of responsibility, of leadership responsibility, and we have to kind of try to do the best that we can as we
Mhm,
figure it out for ourselves.
yeah.
So that's where I got to within the corporate space, and I worked with some really great people, some really great managers, some really great leaders, and they really shaped my ability to step up into that
Mhm.
leadership
Mhm.
position. When I was at Group M, Cecilia Granstrom was my manager at the time, and she was just so present with her communication, with
Mhm.
how she would show up in meetings, the way that she would manage her team. And I really appreciated that about her and aspired to be like that one day. And the other person that really stands out in my mind when I worked at Fox was Buffy Bowles, who was the HR director at the time. And look, if you've ever worked in HR and you're working in a regional role of a fast paced business, you've got some challenges on your hands. Like that is not a smooth and easy ride. That is a very, very turbulent and bumpy ride, just the nature of the beast. And she was always so pleasant, so happy. She would always show up in the meeting afresh. She didn't bring any of those worries, any of those troubles into the meeting. I just thought it was remarkable knowing the pressure that was on her shoulders. And I thought that was great leadership from her to not bring the past into the present. And I thought that was quite
Mhm.
remarkable. And but the biggest leadership role that I've had, I think, is actually now. Like that was the corporate world, and that's where I got to in the corporate space.
Mhm.
But what I'm doing now, I feel like it's a real leadership role because I'm leading an academy. I'm responsible for people's careers and for their growth. I'm directly responsible, and they trust me to lead them through something that they don't know how to do by themselves. And that's a big responsibility.
Mhm.
And I take it very seriously, and I'm very passionate about leading people through that change. So that's kind of my experience of leadership. And if I were to look outside, into the world of people that we all know.
Mhm.
Who do I think is a good leader from having not worked with them, of course, but from my own perception and what I see of them? People that are when I look at countries and country leaders. So someone like the New Zealand Prime Minister, so Jacinta Ardern.
See.
She's done a remarkable job. She's got a very young family. She's done a remarkable job at leading the country through a pandemic. Every country's
Mhm.
had the same thing going on, different challenges, different sizes, all the rest of it, but they've had to lead through a very difficult time. And I think she's really demonstrated some wonderful leadership skills.
True.
And if I look at maybe more sort of celebrity people that we know that are out there, not really celebrities because they are actually running multi-million-dollar companies and that's their real day job, but we know them as public figures. I would say someone like Richard Branson,
Mhm.
of obviously the Virgin Group, especially going to space. I mean, come on, he's literally left the Earth. He's really pushed boundaries. He's really kept a very humble persona, very
Mhm.
humble side of him, despite what he's really achieved out there in the world. And I think that's very encouraging and very inspiring because I think sometimes leadership can get a little bit. We feel like we have to compromise things, or we feel like we
Mhm.
have to be very overbearing, or
Mhm.
kind of go into these kind of qualities. But he's kind of showing that actually you can. There is another way that you can effectively do this.
Yes, thank you so much for
Mm.
sharing with us. And a lot of us, of course, has to go through like experiences where we can actually learn from our past experiences and from the leaders that we work with. And thank you for sharing that with us. And what I've highlighted from what you've shared is what you do now. And I mean, as a leader, yourself, of course. You have to go through all those experiences so that you can face whatever you're doing right now, which is, you said, the biggest responsibility as a leader, because the
Mm.
future of the people that you work with depends on that, right? And and I can really see the passion that and the seriousness that you really show and share to those you work with. And I have similar leaders that I like as well. You mentioned Jacinda and as well
Yeah.
as Richard. I like both of them as well. And because
Yeah.
of, the uniqueness, they seem to really have fun as well in what
Yeah.
they do, right? Like for Jacinda, it's
Exactly.
more towards, I would say, like, the communications part and her emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
that really gives her much of this uh, I would say like a level where people can really look up to them. And then of course
Mm.
Richard is really like amazing with all the things that he do, right? Amazing stuff that he.
And when I think of Richard Branson now, I just think of that wonderful clip of
Mhm.
when he was out in space with his colleagues, and he was just like a child, just
Yes,
with no gravity, just like with his sunglasses on. He was just like a child, just spinning around in that spaceship, and that's just wonderful. It's wonderful to see that
right, right. And
personality.
that's, I believe that what makes Richard special as well, right?
Yeah,
Because of him staying young and being
exactly.
childish,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we forget he's in his 70s, right? We kind of forget that part.
Yeah. So it's really fun to watch him. I always follow him, read his stuff and all those stuff. So,
Yeah.
having to share like your experience and your some of the leaders that you look up to, then that leads me to my next question. What is leadership for you?
Yeah, there's been books written on this thing, right? The burning question, like how do you define leadership? But for me, leadership is about being the visionary. There's got to be somebody that understands and sees very clearly in their own mind
Mm-hmm.
what it is that needs to be created. There has to be some kind of end goal, end vision that everyone is working towards to create. So there's a very creative side to leadership, isn't there, from that perspective? But there's also this wonderful ability to be able to hold that image and that vision and that end result in your mind, but also bring people along with you on the journey so that it can actually happen, so that you have a common purpose, that you're all in it together, you're all working towards something bigger than any one person in the equation. And it just allows everybody, not just the people under the leadership, but also the leader themselves. It just allows everybody to benefit because it gives space and room for people to grow and to stretch and to evolve as individuals. And so, if I were to just give it a real couple of lines of what my definition of leadership was, that's how I would define it, in its essence.
Yes, and I love how you define it. I mean, like as a leader, we have to be visionary, and of course, we have to bring people along, like what you said, for a common
Yeah.
purpose. And sometimes that's, some of the issues or problems that's happening in the organization are because
Mm,
of, you some leaders are missing out on this purpose part, right? They have
yes.
a vision, but then sometimes they forget what's the purpose why they're doing this, right?
Yeah.
And so thank you for sharing that with us. And before I proceed to the next question, I just want to say hi to Parama. He said excellent, and then Amanda is saying hi as well. So thank you for engaging with us, and do continue to stay with us and to learn from Angie from this interview, right? With us. Yeah. So, a lot of times we've been hearing, recently about the new normal, the next normal, whatever they want to call it, right? Because of the difficulty and so much or constant changes and even fast changes, I would say that is happening. So, for you, how would you define or describe the next normal?
So many normals, right? I didn't even know there were so many variants of normal.
Same as
It's like
COVID
COVID itself.
19.
It's just mutating into different levels of
Exactly.
normal. I mean, we're going to get to a point where there's just no normal. We're in the no normal.
Exactly. So many
But
variants, right?
yeah. But yeah, the next normal. That's where we're heading now. What we're looking at now, isn't it, for the next kind of 3 to 5 years, which is a little bit scary actually when you hear those figures, or it is at least to me. It just, I think we're all kind of wishing that it will just kind of, it's just going to have one day, it's just going to finish, it's going to be over, and everything's going to go back to normal.
True.
But the reality is that well, it hasn't yet, and it's unlikely to do that, right? Anytime soon, especially overnight. So what does that next normal really look like for organizations, for leadership, and for everyone working within it? I think there needs to be, and we're already seeing it, but there needs to, I guess
Mhm.
it's a continuation of what we're already seeing, is
Mhm.
flexibility. There's, I think the main word is really flexibility.
Mhm.
We've had to adapt, and we've had to flex, and we've had to change just to keep business running. And also, as part of that, individuals and employees, they need and crave and want more flexible working conditions,
Mhm.
not just in location, although that's obviously the main change, right, that we've seen.
Right.
But also maybe in hours. I think it was, I don't know if they still do this, but Netflix certainly, before, even before what the situation that we're in right now, they actually had flexible working hours. As long as you delivered what
Mhm.
you needed to deliver under the
Mhm.
responsibility or role that you get paid
Mhm.
for, then no one
Right.
really cared too much about what time you log on to your computer. Just having a bit more integration
Mhm.
within real life, because we all have real lives, and being
Exactly.
able to deliver to our responsibilities that we have, contractually as employees. So I think flexibility is a really big one that needs to be installed even more so, and continue to be installed
Mhm.
within the working culture, because it's what people are craving, and what that kind of next normal is going to really need to
Mhm.
support, I guess, the success of the future growth of the organizations. And I think the other thing is, there's been a shift of change of how employees think. And it's
Mhm.
kind of overdue, right? The way the world of work has been overdue for a little bit of a shake-up. And I think what's happening now is that shake-up. And I think
Mhm.
more people have been, I don't know if forced is the right word, but maybe some people have been forced to look at it. It's been quite a rude awakening for some people, just to really stop and think about the bigger issues that are going on in the world, and what is my part to play in all of this? What is
Mhm.
my purpose? Where am I heading? How am I growing? What is important to me as a human being, as an
Mhm.
individual? So it's given a bit of space for people to reflect upon that. And I think what we're seeing now, especially some of the statistics that are coming out in recent studies, the recent study by Microsoft shows an alarming amount of people saying that they're ready and willing to move on. Around about 40% of the workforce are saying that they will look for a new job after the pandemic is over, is kind of showing you that people are craving for change, and they want something different. So organizations need to get a little bit smarter about
Mhm.
being able to satisfy what it is that's missing from those current roles, if they're going to retain. And I think part of this is helping people understand their purpose. Now,
Mhm.
this is kind of going the next level, right, of what the responsibility really is of an organization. Certainly how it was set up, back in the day. But as we are evolving as a human race, as the world is evolving, the companies also need to evolve with it. And we're starting to see an appetite for people to want to have a second career. Now, that
Mhm.
may not mean that they want to transition into something else full time, but there
Mhm.
might be some things that they just want to do on top of their day job that are going to
Mhm.
give them some purpose and meaning in life.
Mhm.
An example of this is that I was chatting to somebody on LinkedIn. Uh,
Mhm.
worked at LinkedIn, who was also a mindset coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, why can we not be the marketing manager, for example, of an organization, but also know that actually we need to fulfill something within ourselves by helping
Mm-hmm.
people outside of that, and maybe have a little bit of a side hustle going on where maybe you're counseling people through their own personal problems. Why
Mm-hmm.
can we not multi-dimensional in that way? So I think there's two things there: flexibility and just helping people find a bit more purpose, and just
Mm-hmm.
encourage that within their talent and within their workforce, because it's going to be paid back in dividends.
Right. That's really beautiful. I mean, like we've seen, like I would say that one of the silver linings that we saw from, and we got realizations that we got from COVID-19 is all about this. Actually, it's possible, right? To be
Hmm.
flexible in terms of like what you've said, location, number of hours. In fact, there's quite a number of companies that has been, experimenting on working from home or hybrid and all those stuff, but it's not that acceptable for most, traditional companies. But now, since it's like no choice for most of them, so flexibility has to really be, in place. And again, finding the purpose. And I believe that because of the COVID-19 as well, a lot of us have actually experimented and tried, doing quite a number of things based on our purpose and what we enjoy most, right? And just sharing that talent that we have
Yeah,
to the rest of the world, right? So yeah.
exactly. We're not
Mhm.
just one thing. We're not a job title.
Exactly.
We are certainly more than our job title. And I think the more that we can treat people as a whole human being,
Mhm.
the better off that everyone is going to be.
True, true. And so that let's go or move on to the things that a lot of people are, challenged with, I would say. So, you work as a corporate leader, and you're still working with some corporate leaders right now to help them. So what would you say would be the top three problems that they normally face?
What I noticed from my experience working
Mm-hmm.
in the corporate world is that there was always a real pace. There was always a real pace of change. Not just workload, that's something different, but there was always new products, new revenue streams. There was always new departments, new clients. There was always this newness coming
Mm-hmm.
into the organization. And it was very difficult, and is still very difficult, for organizations to actually keep up with the pace of change, because
Mm-hmm.
we just can't keep up with that pace. Because by the time that you've won I used to work a lot in agencies, right? So I know a lot about
Mm-hmm.
winning accounts and new business coming in almost instantly. It takes time to bring the right people in. It takes time to reallocate resources internally. It takes time to get the people resource in place. So that speed of change is a very challenging part
Mm-hmm.
of running business and growing, because we all want to grow. We all want to get involved in exciting new projects, but it's the resource aspect that can be very challenging, of being able to keep up with that pace and keep up with that change. And I think the second part of that kind of relates. The second point kind of relates to that a little bit. I guess everything's connected, right? Nothing sits in isolation, but it relates to it in that there's always been a bugbear of organizations of being able to find the right talent. I worked in talent acquisition for 12 or 13 years before I shifted into what I'm doing now and running the academy. And there was always a war on talent. I worked
Yeah.
in digital marketing for many years, sourcing talent, And it was one of those industries that was growing way faster than how people were able to upskill and have just experience under their belt doing. So it was very challenging to find good talent and excellent talent. And there's so many different roles popping up with all of this newness in technology and newness of revenue streams and things shifting and changing in various industries, that we've got to start upskilling people who have relatable experience, because there's
Mhm.
just not going to be enough people out there in the marketplace who
Mhm.
actually have direct experience. So there's a real acquisition challenge that has
Mhm.
always been there. I don't know that there's really a magic wand that's going to fix that anytime soon, other than just creating more ways of being able to take excellent, good people with the right values and upskill them in the actual hardcore skills that you need them to have. And I
Mhm.
think the second and third the second part to that is retaining talent as well.
Mhm.
It's like I say, if 40% of people are actually considering leaving their job because
Mhm.
of everything that we've been through, then companies really need to focus on how they can start paying attention more and retaining their top talent. There's always going to be people they may accept that it's time for them to move on. There's always going to be that,
Mhm.
but there are people that they really do not want to lose them. So retention, I think, is going to be, if I were a leader in an organization right now, I think I would be losing a little bit of sleep about my best people leaving, and I'd want to have something in place that made sure that didn't happen.
Thank you so much for sharing those. And I actually remembered we previously have this session that we shared more about the I would say the career coaching, which is mainly on retention. So we've actually talked about like the worth of the employee and how you can actually like keep them in your organization with different
Mm.
different or potential strategies that are not being used or not
Yeah.
really so much known to most organizations. And like what you've said, that's really like like you said that like retention is one of the ways or one of the reasons why you would lack sleep at night, right? If you are a
Mm.
leader in an organization.
Yeah. That and
So
finding them in the first place.
exactly, right? And yeah, in the first place, it's so difficult to find the right talent already, like what you've said, acquisition, right? And
Mm.
some more, if you have to lose them, that's another issue you have to handle, right? And
Yeah, yeah, and it can be very different across different markets as well. We were very blessed in the UK,
Mhm,
which of course is where
mhm,
I'm from originally,
mhm,
that we had a lot of everybody that came
mhm,
to the UK to seek
mhm,
work. So we had a lot of
mhm,
talent coming into the country, as well as
mhm,
having talented people within it. But
mhm,
there's other parts, perhaps in Asia, where it's not so easy to
mhm.
attract people. It's
Yes,
just the way of the world, right? Some
yes,
locations are more attractive than others. So there's definitely
right.
different challenges dependent on location as well.
And on top of that, if I may add, like it also depends on the culture within the organization
Mm,
and in the country where you are. And at the same time, like for some right now, especially that people can actually work anywhere in the world, right?
yeah.
So
Yes,
that
exactly.
really heightens the war on talent, I would say.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Mhm.
That's kind of the antidote, isn't it? If you're in a market where it's difficult to attract talent, but they
Mhm.
exist outside of your market, but they're just not willing to move there, then
Mhm.
just be open to having it to be a remote role, because it kind of is at the moment anyway, right? It's
Right.
become very bit more normal to have that. As long as people are
Mhm.
willing to flex on hours, because there might be different
Mhm.
time zones,
Mhm.
then that's the antidote right there.
Right, right. And so that leads me to my next questions. I mean, we've discussed about the problems that most leaders do face. So let's give them a few solutions, perhaps. So, what are the important leadership capabilities or skills you must have in the next
Mm,
normal to continue to lead effectively? Having said all those problems that most do face.
yeah, yeah. So it's funny because I take a lot of these learnings from running my own business and just
Mhm,
watching how more public leaders are operating. Because
mhm,
there's definitely a shift of change in the way that we want to interact and the
mhm,
connection that we have with whoever is leading the company
mhm,
that we work for.
mhm,
Now, I can think of organizations that I've worked for
mhm,
where it's been very old school. There's, some guy at the top of the company that's running things. You've never spoken to them. They have their own office tucked away somewhere on the top floor, and there's just no interaction,
mhm,
accessibility. There's nothing that you know about this person. And what we can see from how we are just evolving in our mindset and the way that we like to work, we need to feel that connection, to be motivated, to be driven, to feel like we are all working towards a common purpose. So I feel
mhm,
like the three sort of key areas, if you like, of what needs to be seen within leadership is, first of all, being very observant.
mhm,
Be very observant around what is actually happening, not what you think is happening, not what you want to be happening, but what is actually happening within the organization. Start listening to people,
mhm,
troops on the ground, about what they want, what their challenges are, what they need. And it will
mhm,
give you clues along the way as to what really needs to be installed at a
mhm,
leadership level. I worked with a very charismatic leader when I was at Fox, who you would never know that he was the president, the CEO of the organization. You would just
mhm,
never know that. He was so friendly. He would walk into the office, traveling in from wherever he had been, and he would have a little chat with the receptionist, and then he'd move on into the floor one and start chatting to people. He was liked, he was known, he was trusted. And I think that's a wonderful quality to have in a leadership style, because it helps people know you, it helps
yeah,
people connect with you, and it just helps people want to do more to contribute to the greater good of what the company is trying to achieve, particularly in the more challenging times, right?
mhm,
So I guess that kind of leads me on very nicely to the second element that I think is really important
mhm,
within leadership right now is visibility, for our leaders to be public figures, because it's kind of what they are, but not necessarily public figures as in to everybody else, but public figures within their own organization.
mhm,
In the same way that we know Richard Branson, you know, if you had that within your own company, you had lots of
mhm,
town halls, you had lots of interactions, you understood what was going on from a leadership perspective, there'd be so much more motivation and commonality between
mhm,
everybody. So I think visibility is very important from a leadership quality in
mhm,
this next normal.
mhm,
So maybe there's a little bit more, there's some learnings that can be taken from public figures out there that we see. And the third one, I think we just, as employees, I'm talking, seeing this through the employee lens right now, but I think all that we want is transparency. We want to
mhm,
know what's going on. I think
yeah,
that gone are the days where leadership can kind of squirrel away and keep
mhm,
things to themselves, and only on a need to know basis will you
mhm,
be told things about what's happening with the future development of the organization. I think we're in an era now where, perhaps because of social media, that everything's so accessible, and there's so much access that we have to many different things. We need something similar in ethos within organizations, that there is a level of transparency. Clearly, there will be some confidential things that can't be shared. There will be some privacy. I'm not saying that everyone needs to know everything, but I think there could be more effort made in communication within
Mhm.
organizations to help them
Mhm.
feel more included and to
Mhm.
help them feel more together and united. And that will really need to come through in transparency and consistency of communication from a leadership perspective. Not just changes that are happening, but maybe some of the challenges that we face, maybe the direction of where things are going, maybe how they might actually need certain, certain traits for people to help them achieve and step up and achieve certain things. I think there could be something very there could be a real power in the collective if
True.
leaders were to become more observant, more visible, and more transparent with their communication internally.
Yes, and I love how you made it sound so simple. The three, with the three capabilities or skills that leaders must have, and
Mm.
I would really say that nowadays with us working remotely and having a lot of realization. I'm glad
Mm.
you've actually shared like being observant, especially highlighting on the listening part because
Yeah.
I think this is one of the most challenge for most leaders to be able to
Yeah.
listen wholeheartedly and be able to learn from anyone, anywhere, anytime, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes because of probably the ego or something, where they miss out on actually I can learn from someone, from this person and all those stuff, right? And
Exactly.
also of course visibility, that's also the reason why we're doing this. I mean, we wanted to know how we can actually serve others through what we can do through our
Mm.
genius to through how we can our superpowers by sharing it with others, right? And again, lastly, and I think most importantly, this is also like one of the top challenges from the interviews I had with leaders, where because people got a bit clueless when COVID hits, and they can't see anyone, and when previously leaders are actually considering performance based on the presence. um
Mm.
like a lot of people also had this fear of losing their job and all those stuff, right?
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
and if like what you've said, if they are able to actually communicate both the challenges and what they can look forward to, at least they
Mm.
would they would be more, I would say they would feel more included, like what you've said as well. And probably less fear or gossiping within the
Yeah,
organization
exactly.
if they are well aware of what's really happening, right?
Okay, because it cuts all of that out, doesn't it? You know,
Mhm.
you think about how productivity
Mhm.
drops, and you think
Mhm.
about how churn in an organization happens. It's because of
Right.
some kind of negativity within
Mhm.
the culture somewhere along the line, right? All of that
Exactly.
drama, all of that gossip, all of the heightened anxiety because no one knows what's going on. It's like, guys,
Mhm.
this could be so easily addressed, you know, if there was more consideration around just being a little bit more open and in communication.
True, true. And that
Mm.
actually, we've shared so much about leadership, and how transformation can help. And you've made mention also in the first question, where the growing part of the people within your organization is important, upskilling and all those stuff. So if you can elaborate, or I mean summarize it on the next question, which is what do you believe will be the role of learning, leadership and transformation in thriving in the next normal?
Mm. Yeah, I think there's a real appetite. I think it's always been there. I remember this from when I was an HR business partner, when I worked in acquisition. But even more so, I think now there is just more of an appetite for people to want to learn and to grow.
Mhm.
And
True.
we've been talking about adapting and changes and the next normal, the new normal, the upside down normal, and whatever normal is to come. But this is also evolving as well, right? How employees are being trained, being upskilled, but also just learning and growing as an individual. Does everything that we provide as organizations have to be directly related to their job? There's
Mhm.
definitely a purpose behind that, and it's important to have. But I think there's also a role, if we really want to transform organizations, we've got to upgrade the skills, the mindset, not just the skill set. And I can see that there's been a big trend, of course, by a lot of on-demand trainings. People just want to dip in and out of things when they want to. Maybe there's some topics that people are more interested in than others. Maybe they don't need to go on, a 2-day or 3-day workshop to learn every single thing that they're interested in. Maybe there needs to be more of an Udemy approach or a LinkedIn Learning approach, where there's just a whole bunch of different type of topics and um, yeah, training courses available that are bite-sized, that give you enough for you to do something with, but you can just dip in and out to the ones that are relevant to you. So it's kind of like self-serve, on-demand training with a
Mhm.
real wide variety of topics. I think that's something that would be, that kind of catalog, and to have access to a library like that, I think could be a very good perk and benefit to support transformation, leadership, and obviously keeping employees happy and satisfying their needs as well. I've even seen some organizations give allowances for training. So outside of obviously what they give their employees for their own in-house training to make them
Mhm.
excellent at their jobs, they also acknowledge that they are a person and they might have other interests. They might want to learn other things that may ultimately make them a better employee, because it makes them a better person, but it may not be directly related to what they do.
Mhm.
So I've seen companies give allowances to people. Like when I was running mindfulness courses out there to the general public, I
Mhm.
remember that there were certain organizations, certain employees that worked at certain organizations that had an
Mhm.
allowance that their company had given them that they could spend it on whatever they liked from a learning perspective. So they can just choose, if it's not something that the company want to invest in for the entire organization, because that's quite a big decision, right? Then they can just give them the choice. And I think it's coming back to that flexibility thing, isn't it? That
True.
choice is flexibility.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, if the key here is to focus on developing the person,
Mhm.
keep the person satisfied, keep them growing, keep them developing, because it will create less ego, it will create more loyalty, it will
Mhm.
give them more ownership of their learning and of their career and how they conduct themselves in the workplace. And I think it can really have a very positive impact on the culture of an organization. And because of that, it's going to impact in a positive way
Mhm.
productivity and the bottom line.
True. Thank you for sharing that with us. And really, I would say that learning would be the key. Continuous learning will be the key to success for
Mm,
most organization. And again, like what you've said, human is like a multidimensional, I would say. So you have to satisfy. Are very integrated, and we need that balance of having that self or personal skills, as well as professional skills. And I would remember, because if you've noticed, like when I did my introduction, I have a lot of technical companies that I've worked with, and
yeah.
a lot of times they prioritize the technical part of of the business, and forgetting all about the uh,
Mm,
soft skills, which is highly important. That's what you've shared. We have to have um, that soft skills, mindfulness, and us being a leader, um, and having that self leadership skills as well,
mm,
right? And again, like what we've shared also earlier, it's all about also, like creating more ownership and reducing the part of, the ego, the judgment, the reaction and drama that you've also shared earlier, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So because it affects the productivity as well, and of course the bottom line in
Yeah.
organization, and leaders have to understand that, right?
Exactly, exactly. It's just about seeing the person as a whole person, not
Exactly.
just this, not just this little slither of the person, which is their job title. Yeah,
Exactly.
if we actually treat people as a human being, you're going to
Mhm.
get a very different result.
Right, right. And so that leads me to my next question. If you have a magic wand that you can use, you made mention earlier, if we can have a magic wand, so what will you
Mhm.
do if you have one, in fact?
If I had a magic wand, I think it would be quite simple. I feel very passionately that we all have a side of us beyond what we even dare to imagine,
Mm-hmm.
that's infinite potential that we can step into. But for that to happen, we have to drop and we have to dissolve and detach ourselves from that ego side of personality that is formed over the years. So if I had a magic wand, I would dissolve the egos. I would connect everyone to their higher self, to their purpose, their authentic side, and just sit back with some popcorn and just watch all of the world's problems disappear and get resolved, because everyone would be maximizing their potential. There'd be some great solutions coming out. There'd be a lot of innovation that was able to happen, and everyone would be performing at their best. So therefore, all organizations out there would also be maximizing and doing remarkable things within themselves as well. So that would be my magic wand scenario.
Wow, that's amazing. If I can give you a magic wand, I will just shoot it here. But anyway, the best part is, even, even without the magic wand, you've been already helping us, um, business owners, professionals to, be more mindful, remove that ego. I remember the sessions we had when I had my mindfulness coaching with you, and it was really amazing. It has really, changed a lot, a lot of thinking, or maybe the part where, I used to be, to becoming who I wanted to be, for me to be able to live that purpose. And, and I'm really glad that, I've always been hearing how, authentic and warm I am, like, they see
Mm,
how, passionate I am with my purpose. And so thanks
yeah.
to you for, helping me with that as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice to hear that. Wonderful to see it as well.
Yes. And so that leads me to my last question. If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be?
Hmm. I guess it would be, how can people find purpose at work? Because I think this is really just the bigger question that everyone's just seeking. It
Mm-hmm.
may not be plain in their mind exactly in those words, but people that are feeling a little bit demotivated, all of those 40% of people that are willing to walk away from their current jobs
Mm-hmm.
right now because of everything that they've been through, there's
Mm-hmm.
clearly more than ever, a need for purpose, for us to be connected to something beyond just rocking up and going to work and feeling like we're just existing. There's got to be something else in our humanness that is being satisfied here. So, ultimately, I just believe that people, what they want at the end of the day, they want to be happy. They want to be fulfilled. And with, so much of our life being at work, then we need to look at how we can find our purpose within that. Look there, not just there, but make sure that you pay attention to that part. You know, part of what I'm doing out there in the world right now is helping people with that question. You know, how to find your purpose, I think, can sound like a bit of an overwhelming question. Oh my God, that sounds really big. Like, how can I figure that out? It's kind of like the holy grail. It's like, well, if I have the answer to that, I have the answer to life, and then I'll be enlightened. Like, it feels like this like mammoth task and journey that you have to go on. Well, why don't we just start with one aspect of it? Why don't we start with the main thing that you're doing in your life, and that's working? How can you feed that side of you to find purpose in your work? And I think I'm assuming you want me to answer this question rather than just leaving it. You know, that's the question that I would ask, not rather than, you know, just leaving people hanging. But
Yes. True, true. I mean, thank you for answering that question. I mean, after all, that's the, that's the best question you can, that's the question that you can best answer. I mean, yeah. So, and again, that's really beautiful. I mean, if we just, if everyone else just asks that question, then, we have to really start with our why, right? We've heard that so many times, like from Simon Sinek, for example, right?
yeah,
Start with your why, and that's all about knowing your purpose. And if we ask this, we are supposed to be more mindful of how we act, how we
mhm,
react or respond, and how we do things, right? Because we know our
yeah,
purpose. If we constantly ask the right questions to
yeah.
ourselves, that's really gonna be beautiful, right?
Yeah, exactly. I know that we all wish that we could just go to the local store and there'd be a jar that says purpose on it, and we can just pick it up and we can just buy it. We try to do that with, you know, things like wine and
Mhm,
Coca-Cola and whatever else advertising makes us believe is going to make us happier. But we
mhm,
we have to, it's an introspective task, isn't
mhm.
it? It's a self-reflective
True.
space that we have to go into
Mhm,
to discover what is it that means something to us, because it's not it's subjective, right? There's no blanket answer to that. It's something very unique to the individual, and the more that people understand about themselves, the
mhm,
more that masterful that they can become, not just, you know, as a professional and being
mhm.
aligned to their purpose, but also just as a human being, right?
True.
And who wouldn't want just nicer, kinder, purpose-led human beings in this world?
Mhm. True, true. Thank you so much. And is there, before we end the session, is there another message or other message that you'd like to share with them or invite them with?
But I think there's, you know, we've talked a lot around purpose and being more of a taking more responsibility of
Mhm,
being able to evolve yourself, and also for
mhm.
organizations to support with that. That's kind of been the theme of our conversation today, isn't
Mhm.
it? So
Yes.
I would just simply say, if that people have been watching today and it's resonated, what I've been sharing
Mhm.
has resonated, then just connect with me on LinkedIn, and it'll be great to have, you know, any follow-up conversations if people have some curiosity around anything that we've been talking about today.
Yes, thank you so much. I would say this has been a really authentic, mindful, and purposeful conversation with you. So I thank you for that. And thank you, everyone, especially those who engage with us. And for those who would watch this, I'm sure you will be learning so much. And do join us in the journey to, like in my introduction, it's all about fighting the pandemic that caused challenges, and let's all turn this into an opportunity, through several interventions that we do, like this interview. And remember that even the richest investors in the world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. So, with that, we would like to leave you with this quote from Dolly Parton, that if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you, Angie, and thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye for now.
Bye.